In the book, you show that aging well and achieving flow, that they go kind of hand in hand. We've talked about flow in the past. Why don't you define flow for those listening?
So flow it's scientifically defined as an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best, we perform our best, and it refers to any of those moments of rapt attention and total absorption when you're so focused on what you're doing on the task at hand that everything else just starts to disappear. Sense of self-consciousness is going to quiet down. Time's going to pass strangely. Usually just get so sucked into what you're doing that hours go by without you noticing. And throughout this experience, all aspects of performance, both mental and physical, tend to go through the roof. Huge amplification in skills and abilities. Flow states have triggers, right? We've talked about that before on this show. Preconditions that lead to more flow. So if you want more flow in your life, these triggers are sort of your toolkit. Now here's where it gets interesting when you start talking about peak performance aging and adult development, a whole bunch of stuff. The most important of flow's triggers is the challenge skills balance. So shorthand for the triggers, flow follows focus. It only shows up when all of our attention is in the right here, right now. That's what all the triggers do. They drive our attention to the present moment. The idea with the challenge skills balance is we pay the most attention to the task at hand at the present moment when that challenge of the task of what we're doing slightly exceeds our skill set. So you're stretching, you're pushing on your skills, but you're not snapping, you're not overwhelmed and scared, right? Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow psychology. It's funny, everybody knows him as like the flow guy, and yet the bulk of his books were on adult development and flow's role in adult development one way or another. He really spent a lot of his career there, and he ultimately argued that flow is the mechanism by which we grow up. Literally, it's how we mature. And the reason is because of the challenge skills sweet spot. Like every time we drop into flow, we're pushing on our skills, we're growing, we're becoming more adaptable, more complex, and we're a different person on the other end. Simultaneously, because flow automatically expands empathy, it allows us to see things from others' perspectives. And wisdom, some of the same things you get in your 50s, flow automatically expands for us along the way. These are the mechanisms of maturation as well, right? Like we're learning, we're developing new skills, we're gaining wisdom, we're gaining expertise. So his argument was flow is literally how we grow up. And interestingly, in the very last study he did, it was just published, he died a couple of years ago, but this was just published like 3 months ago posthumously with a number of other great authors, was he studied flow proneness in later life. And he wanted to know, do we ever stop craving flow? Does this engine of development ever go away? And it turns out, no. Our desire to drop into flow stays consistent across our lives. The only time people see it tail off is at the very end of their lives as their physical skills start to decline. There's a correlation there. But as our regenerative medicine and longevity science and peak performance aging sort of extends our life past the 80s into our 90s, beyond, that limit looks like it's going to keep moving out with it. And it's only like as the body totally starts to fall apart that our desire for flow seems to wane a little. It may not even be our desire wanes, but it's our ability to get into the state.